The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface. We've mapped more of the moon than we have of the seafloor. And beneath those dark waters, cities wait. Not ruins, not debris. Complete cities, with streets and temples and walls, resting where no civilization was supposed to exist. When archaeologists finally reached them, what they found challenged every historical timeline we've been taught. Some discoveries were documented. Others were quietly archived. And a few were ordered sealed before the world could see what was down there. Lock your doors, put on your headphones, because after this video you'll never look at the ocean the same way again. The Mediterranean, off the coast of Alexandria, Egypt. Summer 1996. A team of French marine archaeologists, led by Dr. Jean-Yves Empereur, descended 240 meters below the surface, searching for artifacts from Cleopatra's palaces. They expected columns, pottery, maybe a few statues scattered across the seabed. What they found instead was an entire district. Streets laid out in precise geometric patterns. Granite sphinxes weighing over 9 tons each. Obelisks standing upright, as if the city had sunk yesterday, not 1,500 years ago. Dr. Empereur described it in his field notes. The architectural precision was staggering. Blocks fit together with gaps no thicker than a sheet of paper. No mortar, no visible tool marks. Just stone against stone, aligned to fractions of a degree. His team measured foundation walls running for over 300 meters in straight lines, underwater, perfectly level despite the uneven seabed beneath them. That shouldn't be possible with ancient tools. Even modern underwater construction struggles with that level of accuracy. Here's what made it stranger. Among the ruins they found statues depicting figures in clothing styles that didn't match Ptolemaic Egypt. Robes with geometric patterns resembling Minoan designs. Headdresses similar to those found in Mesopotamian artifacts. As if this city had been a crossroads for civilizations that, according to official history, never interacted. Dr. Empereur submitted his findings to the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, requesting permission for a full excavation. The council delayed. Months passed, then they denied the request, citing concerns about structural integrity and tourism impact. A diver who worked on the team, Malik Essam, later spoke off the record to a journalist. He said they'd found something else down there. A chamber beneath one of the sphinxes, sealed with a stone door. Inscriptions on the door included symbols no one on the team recognized. Not hieroglyphics, not Greek, something older. When they tried to document it with underwater cameras, every piece of footage came back distorted. Static lines, color shifts, frames that looked like the stone was moving. Malik requested permission to open the chamber. The council refused. 2 weeks later, the entire site was declared off-limits to independent researchers. Only government-approved teams could dive there, and none of their findings have been made public. Malik never went back. He told the journalist he still dreams about that door, about what might be behind it, and about the strange low hum he heard through his diving equipment when he placed his hand on the stone. A sound that felt like it was coming from inside the rock itself. But Alexandria wasn't the first submerged city to raise questions. It was just the most accessible. The coast of India, Gulf of Cambay, January 2002. The National Institute of Ocean Technology was conducting routine sonar mapping of the seabed when technicians noticed something unusual. Geometric patterns. Straight lines. Right angles. At a depth of 37 meters, covering an area of approximately 9 square kilometers. Dr. Espadranian, the lead scientist, couldn't explain it as natural geology. The formations were too regular, too symmetrical. He requested a follow-up expedition with underwater cameras and sample collection equipment. What they brought back shocked the archaeological community. Pieces of wood, pottery fragments, and most controversially, a section of what appeared to be a deliberately constructed wall, with stones fitted together in an interlocking pattern. Carbon dating placed the wood samples at 9,500 years old. That's older than the Sumerian civilization. older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than any known city in human history. If accurate, it would mean an advanced society existed in the region thousands of years before we thought urban civilization began. Dr. Badrarian presented his findings at a conference in Hyderabad. Other archaeologists were skeptical. Some accused him of contamination. Others suggested the samples came from natural driftwood deposits. But the stone structures on the sonar couldn't be explained away as driftwood. They showed clear signs of deliberate construction. Parallel walls, foundation layouts, street grids. The Indian government initially supported further research. Plans were made for a comprehensive underwater excavation. Then, without explanation, funding was cut. The site was reclassified as a restricted maritime zone. Diving permits were denied. When journalists asked why, officials cited national security concerns and environmental protection. But a source within the ministry, speaking anonymously, told a reporter that the real issue was the implications. If the carbon dating was correct, it would force a complete revision of the historical timeline for human civilization. Textbooks would need to be rewritten. Established theories would collapse, and no one wanted to be responsible for that. Dr. Badrarian retired 2 years later. In his final interview, he said the evidence was undeniable. Something was down there, something older than history, and someone decided the world wasn't ready to know about it. The Caribbean, off the western coast of Cuba. May 2001. A Canadian exploration company, Advanced Digital Communications, was conducting underwater surveys for oil pipelines when their sonar detected structures at a depth of 650 meters. The lead researcher, Paulina Zalitsky, initially thought it was a malfunction. Structures that deep, that far offshore, shouldn't exist. Cities aren't built underwater. But when they reviewed the sonar data, the patterns were unmistakable. Symmetrical formations, pyramid shapes, plaza-like spaces surrounded by what looked like buildings. Zalitsky's team used a remotely operated vehicle equipped with cameras to investigate. The footage showed massive stone blocks, some measuring over 2 meters in length, arranged in precise patterns. Smooth surfaces, carved edges. The layout resembled a city center with a large pyramid structure at one end and smaller buildings radiating outward. The team estimated the site covered an area of approximately 20 square kilometers. That's larger than many modern cities. Here's the problem. At 650 meters deep, the site would have had to sink catastrophically, or it was built at a time when sea levels were dramatically lower. Geological records suggest sea levels were that low during the last ice age, around 12,000 years ago. But 12,000 years ago, humans were supposedly hunter-gatherers. We weren't building stone cities with pyramid complexes. We didn't have the tools, the organization, or the knowledge. Yet, there it was, captured on video, sitting on the ocean floor where no city should be. Zalitsky submitted her findings to the Cuban Academy of Sciences. They were intrigued. Plans were made for a joint Cuban-Canadian expedition to conduct a full survey and retrieve samples. Then the political situation shifted. Relations between Cuba and Canada became strained. Funding evaporated. The Cuban government stopped issuing permits for the site. When researchers tried to access it independently, they were turned away by the Cuban Coast Guard. The site remains off-limits. The footage Zalitsky recorded is still available online, but no one has been allowed to return. A marine geologist who reviewed the footage, Dr. Manuel Iturralde, said the structures looked man-made. He couldn't say definitively without physical samples, but the geometry, the arrangement, the sheer scale, all pointed to intelligent design. When asked why no one was allowed to investigate further, he just shook his head. Some questions, he said, are more dangerous than the answers. If 3 submerged cities weren't enough, the pattern continues. And it gets stranger. Japan, off the coast of Yonaguni Island, spring 1987. A local dive instructor, Kihachiro Aratake, was exploring underwater terrain for a new diving route when he encountered a massive stone structure, flat terraces, sharp right angles, steps carved into rock faces. It looked like a ziggurat, a step pyramid, rising from the seabed at a depth of 25 meters. Aratake surfaced immediately and reported the discovery to marine geologists at the University of the Ryukyus. Dr. Masaki Kimura spent years studying the site. He measured the structure's dimensions, over 100 meters long, 25 meters wide, and 27 meters tall. The terraces showed signs of deliberate carving, with tool marks visible on some surfaces. The steps were uniform in height, approximately 20 centimeters each, following a consistent pattern across multiple levels. Natural erosion doesn't create uniform steps. Water and currents wear rock unevenly, but these steps were identical, as if cut by the same hand following the same plan. Dr. Kimura's conclusion: the Yonaguni monument, as it came to be known, was at least partially man-made. He estimated it was carved around 10,000 years ago, when the area was above water. That would make it one of the oldest megalithic structures in the world, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Giza, built by a civilization we have no record of. Other scientists disagreed. Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, visited the site and argued it was a natural formation, shaped by tectonic activity and erosion. He pointed to similar natural rock formations elsewhere in the world. But Dr. Kimura countered with evidence of drill holes, quarry marks, and carved symbols that couldn't be explained by natural processes. The debate continues, but one thing is certain: no one knows for sure, and no comprehensive excavation has ever been approved. Local fishermen avoid the area. They say the water around the monument behaves strangely. Currents shift without warning. Compasses spin. Divers report feeling vibrations through the water, a low hum that seems to come from the stone itself. One diver, Takeshi Inaba, described it as feeling like the structure was breathing, and he never went back. The monument remains a tourist attraction, but all research permits are tightly controlled by the Japanese government. Independent investigations are discouraged, and the question of who built it and why remains unanswered. But before we explore more submerged mysteries, there's another site that defies conventional explanation, one that connects ancient engineering with astronomical precision. The island of Yonaguni, Japan, holds more than just the famous monument. Nearby, at a depth of approximately 30 meters, divers discovered what appears to be a network of roads, walls, and terrace structures extending for several kilometers. The formations show geometric patterns, right angles, parallel lines, stepped platforms that resemble ancient processional ways. Japanese marine geologists mapped the site using sonar and photogrammetry. The structures align with cardinal directions, north-south, east-west, with precision that natural erosion doesn't create it. Dr. Teruaki Oshima, a professor of geology at Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology, studied the site for over a decade. He identified what appeared to be quarry marks, places where stone had been deliberately removed, leaving smooth surfaces and uniform dimensions. He found circular depressions, approximately 2 meters in diameter, arranged in patterns that suggested they once held pillars or posts. And most intriguingly, he discovered carved symbols on one of the submerged stone faces, geometric patterns, concentric circles, lines radiating from central points, similar to petroglyphs found in other ancient sites across the Pacific. Dr. Oshima submitted his findings to international archaeological conferences. The response was divided. Some agreed the site showed signs of human modification. Others insisted it was entirely natural, a product of tectonic activity and underwater currents. But Dr. Oshima pointed to specific features. The steps were too uniform, the angles too precise, the alignment too consistent. He estimated that if the structures were man-made, they would have been carved when the area was above sea level, approximately 10 to 12,000 years ago, during the last ice age. Here's what made the discovery controversial. 10,000 years ago, Japan was supposedly inhabited by Jomon hunter-gatherers, a sophisticated culture, yes, with pottery and settlements, but not one credited with large-scale stone construction or astronomical alignments. Yet if Dr. Oshima's interpretation is correct, Someone built these structures before any known Japanese civilization existed. Someone with engineering knowledge, tools capable of cutting stone, and an understanding of geometry advanced enough to align their constructions with cardinal directions. Dr. Oshima applied for funding to conduct underwater excavations. He wanted to retrieve samples, analyze tool marks under electron microscopes, date the organic material trapped in the stones. His applications were repeatedly denied. Japanese cultural agencies cited environmental concerns and tourism management. But colleagues suggested a different reason. If the Yonaguni structures were confirmed as man-made, the entire timeline of Japanese prehistory would need revision. Textbooks would have to be rewritten. Accepted theories about the development of civilization in the Pacific would collapse. And institutional academia resists that kind of upheaval. Dr. Oshima continued his research independently, using his own funds and volunteer divers. He documented over 300 distinct features across the site: walls, terraces, what looked like plazas. He created 3D models showing how the structures connected, how they formed a coherent architectural plan. But without official backing, without excavation permits, his work remained on the margins. The structures are still there, visited by recreational divers, photographed and filmed, but never properly excavated, never fully explained. And then there's Dwarka, off the western coast of India. Ancient Hindu texts describe Dwarka as the legendary city of Lord Krishna, a magnificent capital that sank into the ocean after Krishna's death. For centuries, it was considered mythology, a religious story, not historical fact. Then, in the 1980s, marine archaeologists from India's National Institute of Oceanography discovered stone structures underwater, about 20 kilometers off the coast of modern-day Dwarka, at a depth of 30 to 40 meters. Dr. S.R. Rao led the initial surveys. His team found walls, what appeared to be fortifications, large stone blocks arranged in patterns consistent with urban planning. They retrieved artifacts, pottery shards, stone anchors, pieces of wood that, when carbon dated, returned ages of over 7,000 years. That's older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than Mesopotamian cities. If accurate, it would place Dwarka among the oldest urban settlements in human history. The discovery aligned with the ancient texts. The Mahabharata, one of India's great epics, describes Dwarka as a planned city with gates, moats, and defensive walls. The underwater structures showed similar features: straight walls, right-angled corners, what looked like gateways leading into enclosed spaces. Dr. Rao proposed that Dwarka was a real city, submerged when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, preserved in the sediments and sands of the Arabian Sea. But the archaeological establishment was skeptical. Some argued the structures were natural rock formations. Others suggested they were remnants of much later constructions, perhaps from medieval times, misdated due to contamination. Dr. Rao countered with evidence, and the pottery styles matched those from ancient Harappan civilization sites. The stone anchors were of a type used in early maritime trade. The urban layout was too organized, too deliberate to be natural or accidental. Dr. Rao requested permission for large-scale excavation. He wanted to bring in underwater archaeologists, conservation experts, dating specialists. He envisioned a project that would rival the excavation of Pompeii, but underwater. The Indian government initially expressed interest. Plans were drafted, funding was allocated. Then, without clear explanation, the project was scaled back. Permits became difficult to obtain. Bureaucratic delays multiplied. By the time Dr. Rao retired, the excavation had barely progressed beyond initial surveys. A researcher who worked with Dr. Rao, speaking anonymously, told a journalist that political and religious pressures played a role. Dwarka is a sacred site for Hindus. Confirming its historical existence would validate religious texts, which some secular historians opposed. But proving it was purely mythological would offend religious communities. Either outcome was politically sensitive. The safest option was to leave it ambiguous, under-researched, neither confirmed nor denied. So, the structures remain underwater, partially mapped, inadequately studied, waiting for someone with the will and resources to investigate properly. The coast of England, off the shores of Dunwich, Suffolk. Medieval records describe Dunwich as a thriving port city, one of the largest in England during the 12th century. Then, over the course of several centuries, the sea claimed it. Storms eroded the coastline, buildings collapsed into the waves. By the 16th century, most of the city was underwater. Today, it's a small village, but beneath the North Sea, the old city remains. Marine archaeologists have used sonar to map the submerged ruins. They've identified the remains of 8 churches, monasteries, shipyards, and hundreds of homes. The layout is intact. Streets run in organized grids. Foundation walls still stand. And divers who've explored the site describe something unnerving. When the tide is right, you can hear bells ringing underwater. Church bells, muffled and distant, as if the towers are still standing, and the bells are still being rung. Dr. Stuart Bacon, a marine archaeologist who led several dives to the site, recorded the sound. He analyzed the audio and confirmed it wasn't a natural phenomenon. The frequency and rhythm matched the pattern of church bells. But the churches have been underwater for over 500 years. The bells should be corroded, buried in silt, silent. Yet divers continue to report hearing them, especially during storms, when the water churns and the old city stirs. Dr. Bacon tried to retrieve one of the bells. He located a tower, partially collapsed, with a bell still hanging inside. When his team attempted to cut it free, their equipment malfunctioned. Power tools failed. Cables snapped. On the 3rd attempt, one of the divers, Sarah Grenville, reported hearing voices through the water. Not words, just murmurs, like a crowd speaking in a language she didn't recognize. She surfaced immediately and refused to go back down. The bell was never retrieved. The site remains accessible to recreational divers, but no one has successfully recovered any significant artifacts. The voices Sarah heard were never explained, and the bells keep ringing on nights when the tide is high and the wind comes in from the east. The pattern repeats. Across the Mediterranean, a city off the coast of Pavlopetri, Greece, dated to 5,000 years ago. Across the Atlantic, strange stone formations near Bimini, in the Bahamas, arranged in straight lines that some believe are remnants of roads or walls. Off the coast of Taiwan, underwater pyramids that match no known architectural style. Each discovery raises the same questions. Who built these cities? How did they end up underwater? And why does every attempt to fully investigate them meet resistance, delays, or outright denial? One final site deserves attention. The waters off the coast of Morocco, near the Strait of Gibraltar, where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Mediterranean Sea. In 2013, a satellite survey conducted by the European Space Agency detected geometric anomalies on the seafloor at a depth of 180 meters. The patterns resembled urban layouts, rectangular formations, radial streets, central plazas. The data was flagged for further review, but before any expedition could be organized, the survey results were reclassified as inconclusive and removed from public databases. A researcher involved in the project, Dr. Amina Rais, leaked portions of the data to a science journalist. The images showed clear evidence of artificial structures. Stone walls, courtyards, what looked like a harbor basin, carved into the bedrock. Dr. Rais argued the site deserved investigation. She applied for funding through multiple channels. Every application was denied. When she tried to access the site independently, Moroccan authorities denied her diving permits, citing maritime traffic and security concerns. Dr. Rais spoke to the journalist one last time, 6 months after the discovery. She said the structures were too precise to be natural, too organized to be random, and too old to fit any known timeline. She believed the site was connected to the other submerged cities. part of a larger network, a forgotten civilization that spanned the ancient world. Then, she stopped responding to emails. Her social media went silent. Colleagues said she'd left the field, moved to a remote area, and refused to discuss her research. The site off the coast of Morocco has never been explored. The data remains classified, and the ocean keeps its secrets. 7 cities, 7 mysteries. From Egypt to India, from Cuba to Japan, from England to Greece to Morocco. Each one shows signs of advanced construction. Each one predates the accepted timeline of human civilization. Each one was discovered, documented, and then suppressed or ignored. Researchers denied access, funding cut, evidence archived, permits refused, as if someone, somewhere, decided these discoveries were too dangerous to pursue. Here's what we know for certain. These cities exist. They're not folklore. They're not myths. They're physical structures, measured, photographed, mapped. Scientists have seen them, touched them, studied them. And yet, decades after their discovery, we still don't have answers. We don't know who built them. We don't know why they're underwater. We don't know what they could teach us about our own history. What if human civilization is older than we think? What if advanced societies rose and fell thousands of years before the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks? What if everything we've been taught about the development of human culture is incomplete, a fragment of a much larger story buried beneath the waves? The evidence is there, waiting. The question is whether we'll ever be allowed to uncover it. If you made it this far, thank you. Leave a like if any of these underwater cities intrigued you. Tell us which one you think holds the most secrets, and which we should explore next. Subscribe to join us as we continue investigating the mysteries history tried to forget. But remember, some discoveries aren't lost. They're hidden. And some secrets were meant to stay beneath the surface.